Hello, my dear friends. Today we are going to read an outstanding diary of a German officer. Gerhard Bartsch served as the commander of the 4th Company of the 42nd Infantry Regiment of the 48th Infantry Division, which fought on the Eastern Front. His entries cover late 1943 and early 1944. This was a period of great challenge for the German army, because the Red Army had achieved the necessary combat experience by this time and was being continuously replenished with both troops and military equipment. He describes in his entries the never-ending problems of the German army, which, together with the constant retreats, brought the soldiers to the point of total moral exhaustion. It becomes extremely difficult to command soldiers now, and sometimes it is even necessary to use weapons to do so. Well now, let's begin. December 12, 1943. The village of Apostolovo. I and another 8 officers were assigned to the 48th Division instead of the 294th Division as expected. December 14th. We reported to General Repke. I was assigned to the 42nd Regiment. December 15th. I was sent to the 4th Company of the 1st Battalion. In the afternoon, I went to the position along with the field kitchen. The new dugouts with floors are being built. Oberlieutenant Abel is appointed company commander. December 18th. I round the positions, I take command of the 4th Platoon. I got a small roofed dugout with no furnace. December 19th. At 8 a.m. there is a heavy Russian attack with tanks. The positions are abandoned. The soldiers are being detained and gathered at the nearest headquarters. The casualties are Battalion Commander and Lieutenant Wagner. Oberlieutenant Abel takes command of the battalion. December 20th. I take command of the 4th Company. January 2nd, 1944. It's a thick fog again. To the left there is the thunder of guns of all calibers, but then it calms down. January 8th. The Russians attempt a combat reconnaissance. Their attacks are beaten back. That evening there is a divisional priest's visit. It is a clear moonlit night, and it is hardly possible to be outside. January 9th. Oberlieutenant Abel was promoted to captain. It is peaceful now. It appears that the Russians are withdrawing their troops and guns from this section. January 10th. As before, it is still quiet, except for the fire attacks, and to the left there is again an absolute hell. In the evening, we, 1st and 4th Companies and headquarters, withdrew from the position. The 2nd and 3rd Companies are already withdrawn several days before. The 97th Infantry Regiment and the 88th Sapper Battalion take over the section. January 11th. All night we drove in trucks in awful cramped conditions, getting soaked in the rain. I was pressed into the seat hard. There was no whole spot on my seat. We covered about 80 kilometers. At daybreak there was a serious bombardment near the village of Elenovka. There are constant attacks in Novokovno. We beat back the attack. We should pull back to the village of Novokovno and then to Ternovatka. There was a heavy bombardment. Mortars fired shortly before the retreat. A direct hit at the entrance to the battalion command post occurred. Captain Abel, Lieutenant Axelberger, Feldwebel Strebel, and Feldwebel Bales are seriously wounded. Lieutenant Carr is appointed battalion commander, and Lieutenant Bartsch is appointed his adjutant. The 4th Company is commanded by Feldwebel Kass. The 1st Company is commanded by Oberfeldwebel Pittmans. January 12th. All night we were on a stressful march through Jelenovka and Buzuluk. Both sides of the village are ravines. 4 self-propelled guns unexpectedly attacked the Russians and broke them with ease. There is no prepared position on the edge of Ternovatka, so it is not possible to entrench in the daytime. At about noon, 20 Russian tanks show up and get ready to attack. It is useless to stand on the exposed positions. To the right and to the left, everything goes backwards, so that our battalion has to join the withdrawing troops. We pull back to Buzuluk to defend the town. The aviation attacks. We are part of Behrman's combat group, that is, part of von der Goltz's combat group. January 13th. It is sunny. There is good visibility. At 9 a.m. we come under heavy artillery fire on our positions in the township. A few squads leave their positions too early, which causes widespread runaway. Somewhere in the middle of the village we managed to stop the men who hadn't fled through the windbreak and hike towards Jelenovka. With the support of machine guns of the 4th Company, mortars, and 1 self-propelled gun, we move into a counterattack. Running from house to house, with a battle cry we get to the last house, all the time having to push up those who lagged behind. Then we storm the positions, and by 12 p.m. we restore the situation. At 4:30 p.m., Captain Behrman gives us notice that we will be replaced by units of the 123rd Division. The replacement is drawn off until the late afternoon. January 14th. We were on the march all night. We should have advanced to the front line, to the heights, but it has dawned and it was impossible to go there. For the time being, we stayed at Konstantinovka in quarters which were crowded to capacity. Initially, they say that at 11 a.m. the trucks will get us, but even at 3 p.m., when they drive away, the soldiers of Behrman's combat group, we remain in the village waiting for orders. 2 men from the 2nd Company come back to our Lieutenant Roa, who was engaged in a battle along with the 2nd and 3rd Company, which numbered 88 men to the left of Ternavatka. On the morning of January 13th, they were wounded. The remnants of their company were forced into flight by an attack at noon, which came from 3 sides. January 15th. I found out today that the remnants of the 2nd and 3rd Companies of about 10 to 15 men are still in the 2nd Battalion, 42nd Regiment. For some time, Major Richter was missing, but now he has turned up again. At night, at about 12 a.m., we were called up. "March to positions, now!" In response to our complaint, we were notified from the division that we would remain under the command of Colonel Vondergoltz or rejoin the former division. The headquarters physician, who had the idea of arranging all this for Behrman, finally telephoned to our division, and we were informed within half an hour that we were staying put. There was a mess of confusion with divisions and regiments. There are very few men, and everyone thinks he can take command with the headquarters of the higher units, which are being replenished with new officers regularly. Our regiment has no communication. Within a short time in our regiment, 2 battalion headquarters have turned out to be unnecessary due to the fact that there are no personnel. The 3rd Battalion is liquidated completely. The 2nd Battalion has about 40 men, and the 1st Battalion has about 90 men. They are considered still powerful. January 16th. At 9 a.m., the village is attacked by attack planes with onboard weapons and delayed action bombs. There is a direct hit on a house which is blown into the air. A few soldiers manage to escape as the bombs are delayed action. We stay all day in the village despite our expectations. At midday, Oberlieutenant Rudiger, the new battalion commander, arrives with Oberfeldwebel Fabrich as adjutant, so that Lieutenant Carr can take the command of the 1st Company again, and I take command of the 4th Company. There are always these endless discussions about handing over and taking command, when it all could have been sorted out in a minute. We are supposed to occupy new defensive positions tomorrow, and again this was discussed in long conversations before. January 17th. I couldn't sleep because of the cold. At 2 o'clock, we set out for reconnaissance with 2 platoon commanders from each company. In vain, we took a detour there. In fact, all this reconnaissance is for nothing. Upon our return, we have to sort out different matters. There was a long discussion. There are enough construction materials for the bunkers. Almost each 3rd house in the village is a pile of ruins. January 18th. Almost all night there was a needless discussion, even discussing the practice of firing guns. I feel every time that this is some kind of game with maquettes and sandboxes. Not much of anything. The battalion commander all day long kept me busy with schemes, shooting targets, field plans, communications with artillery, etc. January 19th. There is nothing happening among the Russians, except methodical and harassing mortar fire, so it's all right to get by. And it would be possible to rest a little if there wasn't this Führer of the combat group with his vanity all day and night. He just grinds my gears. January 20th. The Russians reinforce. There is considerably more movement and more shooting, too. The shooting goes on day and night continuously, so that it is impossible to let the prisoners out in the evening to carry out trench work. Among other things, they are firing phosphorus bombs on our straw roofs and have set fire to our observation posts. The most difficult thing is to get the cable for the wire, and generally speaking, everything is in short supply, especially such trifles. But everything runs its course. As usual, we have to take up the whole 97th Infantry Regiment section, and because of that, we're cut off 300 meters to the right. The tanks and other stuff, it's all going away from us. We still have 3 self-propelled guns, but who knows whether they will stay with us for long. In the evening, something is going on at Ivan's position. There is singing and noise. For sure, they have been supplied with vodka. The night is peaceful. January 22nd. This is insane. We just built the pillboxes. They are better and stronger than they have ever been, and once again we are getting out of here. The order is to replace. About 11 o'clock, we reach Novovitebsk. January 24th. It is impossible to look out in the daytime. The Russians shell us from 3 sides and watch our every step. Notwithstanding the rifle, machine gun, and artillery fire, I had to find a new observation post by day. The defensive line is so bad that you can't imagine anything worse. No visibility. January 26th. There is depthless mud and puddles. Having gone a couple of steps, I already look like a pig. My valenki are soaked to the skin. The commander still does not give me a chance to be alone for a minute. He keeps having all sorts of fantasies. He invents all sorts of crazy things and just gets the hell out of us. Especially whenever a couple of Russians somewhere in our section move forward a little bit. We are already nervous, and he stresses us out even more. After all, our nerves aren't made of steel either. January 27th. It is misty again, so I once more go around all my positions and examine the defense line even better. With all its badness, we can only be surprised that the Russians don't attack, or otherwise the whole line would collapse. There is a gap of 150 to 200 meters between the machine gun nests. One night, the Russians dragged away 8 corpses of their soldiers who were 50 meters from the front line, and none of us spotted anything. Today, in the morning, they slipped into a windbreak on our left flank and started to demine it. My grenadiers soon forced them away, but because of the fog, it was impossible to observe further. January 30th. At 4 to 4:30 a.m., there was a heavy hurricane fire. The Russian attack was beaten back, except for 3 rifle positions, and a breakthrough 700 meters wide was caused. This evening, in complete darkness, we established communication with others. We counterattacked with 4 self-propelled guns, took our trenches back. We have suffered heavy losses. January 31st. I had no sleep at all. At 6 a.m. there was a hurricane fire and an attack with 20 tanks from the right. The anti-tank guns knock our machine gun crews out of the positions taken yesterday. We suffered casualties in men and equipment. In general, the attacks are repulsed. In the evening, we leave the position. The units replacing us take the position prepared behind us. We move to a position near the village of Zhotoya, where we were just recently, and where today the Russians have broken through. We must take up a defense here and join our counter-attacking units later. February 1st, 1944. Again, we had a sleepless night. We dug ourselves new defensive positions with great effort. It is still thawing in depthless mud. At dawn, the Russians come from a totally new direction from the rear. They are repulsed. Not long afterward, they attack from the left, and there our troops fall back on a wide front. With a completely changed front, our positions are unable to hold off the enemy. We pull back to the next row of windbreak, but there we cannot stop the men. Again, we suffer considerable losses. There is a general withdrawal to Novovitebsk. A new intermediate line is built there. We have not enough men, and sometimes at dusk we are being attacked from 3 sides. Again, we have to move back. There are prepared positions about 5 kilometers before Kamenka. The positions are good, but not enough men. Heavy weapons are almost entirely absent. February 2nd. After 3 sleepless nights, with completely soaked valenki boots and partially soaked clothes, and exhausted to the limit, we expect a new attack. An attack is launched without much softening up. The demoralized front is bursting to pieces on the right and pulling everyone along with it, so that it falls back again across the entire width. The mud is such that it costs a lot of effort to move back at all. Many men leave their boots in the mud. There was an attempt to stop the retreating troops at a windbreak. The regimental commander shot my best first number while doing so. Further back we go, blown up self-propelled guns. We stop for short-term positions in a cornfield and then back to the village of Kamenki. We reached a height near the village with the last of our strength, and there we took positions again. No one can entrench anymore. The mortars are without ammunition in Stalendorf. We are under mortar fire, suffering casualties. I am lightly wounded in my right shoulder. For the first time, we are without rations for a whole day. February 3rd. The 4th sleepless night goes on. I am completely exhausted. Step by step struggling against the swamp, under fire attacks, soaked to the skin in the rain, completely covered with a thick layer of mud. This is how I arrive at Stalendorf. The dressing station is gone. Finally, I could have slept, but I hardly sleep at all due to exhaustion and my wound. February 4th. I have not found a physician as yet. At 11 o'clock, together with 4 other wounded men, I leave by wagon for the next village, whence ammunition will be transported. There I met Battalion Commander Stahlmann at the general's accommodation. I could find a physician at the main dressing station in the village of Novi Put. I arrived there at dusk. The dressing station had left from there in the morning. What am I supposed to do here? In the evening, we are taken up according to the order of the division command. The dressing station returned to its former place. There's no rations. There's rainwater used for rations. February 5th. In the morning, I made a bandage. I waited for passing vehicles until noon, then I went on foot. No one could tell me where the convoy of the 42nd Regiment was. I finally get to know that the 72nd Regiment is in the village of Rosa Luxemburg, and then I find out that the 42nd Regiment is located to the right of the 72nd Regiment. February 6th. I reached the convoy of the 4th Company. I changed my underwear, checked my belongings. There are missing 2 bottles of vodka, which I was most anxious to keep. February 7th. The wagons are overloaded. A lot of military supplies, provisions, etc. being abandoned. We have to leave a lot of carts behind. There are no more vehicles in the convoy. The companies are forced to drag it. The Corps needs 4 horses because all the vehicles are exploded over there. All the paper junk of the convoy has been liquidated. February 8th. We got 10 men of replenishment from the infirmary. Our company is on rest since February 4th. February 9th. At 8 a.m. the Russians attack on a wide front, lying down 300 meters away from our positions. Throughout the day there is an intense skirmish. At 7 p.m. I'm assigned a new section where I must take charge of the combat group. February 11th. During the night, and partly during the day, it rained. Again we are in the swamp. The bunkers are crowded because of the reserve group, which is only going to be entrenched yet. In the evening, part of it is led away. The reserve group now consists of 5 men of the 3rd Company, 1 tank machine gun, and my command and control squad. The 3rd Company has no machine guns, automatic rifles, or hand grenades. February 13th. It is surprisingly peaceful both day and night. This evening we got chocolate and trench extra rations. February 14th. It is also quiet. 1 man in my combat group was killed by a sniper. The battalion commander, Captain Stahlman, has returned from leave, but so far he is attached to the general, and then he will take command of the combat group. He's making the rounds of the positions. Regrettably, I remain in command of the combat group. I make sure again that the people there are obviously not good, put together from the wagons, artillery, and others units. My 4th Company is great. The situation with the personnel is very bad. In my current 2nd Company, even the non-commissioned officers are pretty bad. There is the sound of engines. The Russians are singing and clamoring. They must be up to some kind of game again. At night, we set up a wire in front of the positions. In the daytime, we evacuated the village inhabitants. February 15th. As everything is all quiet, I got permission from Captain Stahlman to go to the dentist. My place will be taken by Oberfeldwebel Schwamm. February 17th. At noon, by supply vehicle, I ride to the village of Dolgensevo. There's a blizzard and cold. At 4 p.m., I am at the station. I see panic atmosphere there. The Russians have broken through on the section of the 123rd Division. Moreover, the cars are constantly derailing. That's the partisans are blowing up the railroad tracks. At 10 p.m., I leave for Krivoy Rog by one of the last trains. February 18th. The majority of the quarters are locked. Finally, I found an apartment for the passing ones. All the night there was so much noise that I didn't close my eyes. This morning, in a blizzard, rain, and frost, I head for town, a distance of 6 kilometers. I finally found a dental station. The windows were blown out by the air pressure of the explosions. I had my teeth treated. At 9:30, I came to the Central Command Unit, waited until 3 o'clock, got consolation that the troops at night broke away from the enemy. Finally, I get the news that my division is headed for the village of Dolgensevo, and I go there. I go by passing vehicle. At dusk, I got there. The regiment moved to the village of Tagancha at night. I can't make it there because of the darkness and the blizzard. I found quarters in a crowded Russian house. I'm treated very well. My company stepped this day on a new path of suffering, into a new race with death. In the darkness, the whole battalion, except for a small rearguard, pulled away from the enemy. There is great trouble in getting the wagons across the creek. They could only be hauled empty, all belongings being carried by hand, with everyone soaked in such cold. It was a march through a blizzard, with soaking wet feet, through drifts and so on. It was extremely hard effort. The distance was 15 kilometers. Everyone was almost knocked out. February 19th. We are immediately sent to new positions near Tagancha in darkness. There are practically even no trenches there. We got some frostbite, which is not surprising. The battalion is in the village of Tagancha, and the 4th Company is there too. I'm leaving Dolgetsevo in the morning, waiting on the highway. Major Engel takes me in his vehicle to the village of Podayuf, and from there I go on foot. I got lost, and finally I went on a cart to Tagancha to join the company. At nightfall, we break away from the enemy. We encountered the enemy on the left flank. there is a short march of 3 kilometers. In the village of Krasnaya Syudla, there are some uncovered trenches outside the settlement, so we cannot get warm, and we have to make a better entrenchment. February 20th. It is freezing, but the blizzard is subsiding. The snowdrifts are up to 40 centimeters. From 4 a.m., the Russians have attacked, pushing 2 battalions out of their positions. We have to move the front back at dawn, retreat to the village, and form all-round defense. There are tracer bullets from almost all sides, shelling coming from 3 sides. The Russian pressure weakens. They advance on the flanks. In the evening, we again pull back. A tough march to Dogoltsevo. We take the defense in front of the settlement. There are also bunkers here, but they are far away from each other and completely covered with snow. All night again we did trench work, and all of us are exhausted, with wet, frozen feet. Practically no one has Valenki boots anymore. Some of us got a few slight frostbites. February 21st. At dawn, the madness breaks out again. Lots of Russians assault on a wide front. The mortar crews have ammunition for only 100 rounds. We have to cut down. The Ivans impudently place artillery batteries and approach us in marching columns, bring anti-tank guns to the firing positions. Everything is visible from our command post and our artillery is silent. If things go on like this, these crowds will simply crush us. On the left of the highway, the Russians are advancing. We have repulsed several defensive positions for the 7th Company and are almost on our left flank. More of their men move to attack. We hold our position until about noon. Then the Russians break through in the section of the 3rd Company. The 1st Company is also falling back. In the exposed terrain, we suffer heavy casualties. Then the struggle for the settlement goes on. I, along with 7 soldiers, are on the right flank, and I spot through the trees the masses of Russians marching forward 50 meters away from us. We fire the last of our ammunition into the flank of the Russians, but we fail to hold up the advance of these crowds. We have to flee for our lives through gardens, over fences. Only after 2 kilometers we catch up with our troops. We tried to stop the enemy in the village, then retreat from Dogoltsevo to Krivoy Rog. We observe only a small shelling. We have a short rest in Krivoy Rog, gathering of units. At dusk, we move on through Krivoy Rog into the Inulets. February 22nd. We again had 4 sleepless nights. We were unable to eat anything during the day. It is very cold. Our feet are frostbitten or chafed pustules. Besides, we march in darkness through snowdrifts. About 2 a.m., we reach the village of Donsevka on the Inulets River. The soldiers' nerves are so ragged, and they are so physically exhausted that they wanted to lie down on the road and stay resting like that, and some of them cried like little children. The quarters are crowded with sappers and men from a construction battalion. They are Russian captives, so that most of us could not sleep. At 7 a.m., we continued our march. In 3 kilometers from us, there is a village where there are kitchens with food. There, we got a bottle of vodka for 3 persons, 80 cigarettes per person in front packets. We had a bit of a rest and sleep, warmed up our feet, had a hot meal, and things were fine again and we cheered up. At about 10 a.m., we arrive at new positions prepared in front of Antonovka. The Russians are out of sight today. February 23rd. The Russians approach in huge numbers. It is impossible to determine where the main blow should be. February 24th. At 5:30 a.m., there is fierce fighting. This evening, the Russians broke through near us in the section of the 2nd Battalion. By means of self-propelled guns, they were forced out. The blizzard starts again, and by noon there is fog, no visibility. The Russians come up to us from all directions. We should expect an attack. February 25th. The Russians attack us from the right and from the left. The attack is beaten back. They attack us again using 8 tanks and infantry on tanks. 4 tanks move to the Kolkhoz. There is our command post. The anti-tank gun almost failed, and only at the moment when the tanks approached 100 meters to the Kolkhoz, hit 2 of them. We killed the soldiers. 2 tanks got stuck in the anti-tank ditch. At dusk, the Russians launched a sudden attack in the section of the 5th Company and left our positions behind. By means of mortars, the attackers are stopped. There is a night fighting. I hold from running away the infantry companies and occupy the anti-tank ditch. The enemy is repulsed, and at daybreak, the front positions are recaptured, except for the positions of the 3rd Company. This was mainly caused by lack of wire and rocket launcher. February 26th. As it was on February 25th, after the tank attack was repulsed, so it is today, the enemy is shelling the Kolkhoz with the hurricane fire. On February 25th, we got 2 killed and 8 wounded. It was a direct hit, notwithstanding the strongly fortified defensive positions. It is also strike after strike today. The Russians attack suddenly from the flank. from the trenches they took yesterday, attacking the infantry companies and forcing them to flee, although the number of Russians is not great. We cannot hold our defense at the Kolkhoz, so we have to fall back too. All of us run across the gully under a heavy fire. I run through the wall of fire across the open area to the railroad. I stop 10 men from the battalion and fight my way with them to the 72nd Regiment, which stops us to counterattack. The Russian attack falls under heavy gunfire from the height. I am on the flank of the railroad embankment. From that point, I destroy one machine gun, one handheld machine gun, and a soldier observer. In the evening, there is a second counterattack, but we pull back because we are short of men. Finally, I, together with my troops, have a chance to find my battalion. February 29th. In the afternoon, we pull back. It's thawing again. The snow is floating, slushy. We arrived at the settlement. We kicked out the inhabitants from the quarters and had a rest. March 2nd, 1944. In the evening, there was a discussion. The 1st and 2nd Battalions are joined together and named 1st Battalion. Oberlieutenant Bauer, commander of the 8th Company, is assigned to command the 4th Company. I am given command of the 1st Company. We have a big farewell meal, pork roast with cabbage. We get a bar of chocolate every 4 days, almost regularly. There are 10 men replenished, 6 non-commissioned officers, and 4 soldiers from the reserve unit. March 3rd. We have a discussion about the handing over of units to new commanders. At 2 o'clock, I suddenly receive orders to march to our former positions. The positions are along the gully. The bunkers are even inside, full of mud. There are no furnaces. The positions are not good. The Russians are entrenching themselves 75 to 150 meters from us. March 4th. All the day the Russians were attacking, mostly from the right, close to our rear. With nightfall, the attack came on a wide front with artillery. It was beaten back by infantry fire. March 5th, 1944. It's foggy in the morning. The Russians get ready for an attack in the gully. The attacks are again all around. All the day, the harassing fire of artillery continues. It's the Russian anti-tank guns, Rashboom. The entries break off at this point. This diary was found by Red Army soldiers on the body of a dead German officer. It was handed over to a special department to be translated and analyzed. That is all for today. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and support the channel by subscribing. Bye everyone, and see you soon.